I have a strange profession. I'm a specification writer, which is the written part of architecture. You know, they have books of drawings, but there's also a book of written words that tell what goes into the stuff, the kind of materials and the properties of the materials. I started out in art school, and then I went to architecture school, and I thought it was the most wonderful thing in the world. It was going to be technical plus design. It was okay. I became a specification writer because I worked in an office where a lot of people didn't speak English, but I did. So I ended up doing the written part of the architecture. I work at HLW International, which is an over 125-year-old firm. It's a AE firm, which means that we have engineers and architects. I was always involved in sustainability, so now I'm the managing director of the specifications department and the sustainability department in my office. We're starting to do a lot of, interestingly, a lot of high-rise residential, but basically for the last, I'd say 15 years, we've basically been doing high-end commercial interiors. It's very client-driven. I mean, we have a bottom line of what we try to do that's sustainable, but above and beyond that is very client-driven. I teach the sustainable materials. I started out teaching at FIT ecology and built environment because Grajna Filotowicz is a friend of mine, and she said to me, "Would you like to teach a class?" And I feel like I owe her a great deal in my life for introducing me to teaching and giving me a lot of background of how to teach. So that's how I got to be an FIT. We start out with basics. Like, I try to make the connection between the environment and the materials. And I teach kind of a secular humanist approach to materials, so that we talk about how human beings are affected by all this. And it's very the life cycle of the building material based. So it goes from extraction to manufacturing to distribution to use to disposal, and hopefully in a loop. And that's the basis, the framework in which I teach the class. I did a little talk at Living Building Challenge unconference in Seattle, and I ended my little thing with, I have students that worry about flame retardants. I'm mentoring a student who's doing PVC-related base materials in early childhood environment. Next term, I'm going to be mentoring one of my students now, and she's doing the problems for getting to non-toxicity, to having non-toxic materials. So I ended that talk on that note, which was a very hopeful note.
I work here at HDR. I've been here for 8 years, actually in the city for 4. I was in our Alexandria office for 4 years, and I came up here basically to study sustainability. I went to design school, I graduated, and I found HDR, and they talked a lot about this great big company that they were and all these opportunities. I was really devastated, actually, coming out of this presentation with Jean Hansen is her name. I was like, I am this new young person in this profession. I came here and I'm supposed to know all these things right out of school, and I know nothing about this stuff. I had decided that I was, first step, going to get my lead, and then I was going to go get my license, and then I was going to go back and get my master's so that I could help advocate and teach how sustainability is integrated. I sort of knew coming into the master's at FIT that what I was really interested in was transparency, and that we actually needed to pay attention to what was in materials as a profession. I chose a thesis on flame retardants. We need flame retardants because they're supposed to protect us from fires. But we also know that the chemicals that used in flame retardants are really not good for you. So where are these flame retardants? Can I specify a chair without the flame retardants? Where are they in the foam? Are they in the fabric? Furniture has become such a big topic in the sustainable interiors world that HBO did a documentary, Toxic Hot Seat. Part of my advocacy efforts last year, I got invited 4 times, 4 different things throughout the city where they were showing toxic hot seat and needed somebody to do a presentation about what was going on because regulations have changed. The Else Horace Havermeyer State of the Design Profession, they chose 3 young designers that they wanted to profile. And it was somebody from Parsons and somebody from the New York School of Interior Design and me from FIT talking about what we were seeing in education and what were the trends and what was the interest of this next group of interior designers that are graduating. And FIT still being one of the only institutions I know of that's doing sustainable education at a master's level, it was nice to kind of go and speak to that. Working in healthcare, working in higher ed, and working in any institution where you're making decisions for people that don't have a decision about their space, making those places, making the best decisions we can for them, that's like bottom line. That's probably the most important thing we can do, is to pick materials and to help create spaces that are going to be healthy for the future.
So I've been practicing preservation architecture for almost 30 years, which seems kind of crazy, and this building that we're standing at, the Belvedere Castle, is one of my favorite projects ever. The Belvedere Castle was built as a folly. It had open windows, there were no, it was just openings, and it was a transition space where you came from kind of the wild ramble, and you stopped, and you sort of gathered yourself, and you could walk up into the top of the Belvedere Castle, and you could look out towards north of the park. We worked with the Central Park Conservancy to convert the building from a weather station, which didn't have much in it, to this Discovery Center or museum. And so that's one of the other aspects of sustainability with existing historic buildings, where it's a very green aspect or effort to rehab or adapt an existing building rather than build a new building. A lot of the items that we looked at when we worked on the restoration here were using and restoring the windows so that the windows could be opened and that we could have natural ventilation. We looked at things like using paints that were no or low VOC. In the restoration of the pavilions, we identified wood that was really durable. And so when you look at historic buildings, one of the things that really makes them very sustainable is often their permanence or the durability, that they use materials that were like the Manhattan schist and granite, which the Belvedere Castle is made of. The Manhattan schist is actually right here on the site, and this building is built within an outcropping of Manhattan schist. We're working on a building that was built in 1872 using materials right from the site. And so it's incredibly durable and sustainable because you're not bringing and transporting materials from the other side of the country, let alone the other side of the world. It's on a Manhattan schist outcropping. So they use the stone that they could excavate here in the park. I have been spending the past 10 years integrating sustainability with preservation, and those two actually really go very well together. You can retrofit existing buildings. You've got a building already, which is much greener than having to build a new one. There are more and more historic buildings, including other National Historic Landmarks in New York City, which have gone green in a big way. For example, the Empire State Building, which is a National Historic Landmark, is a LEED Gold project, and the Chrysler Building also achieved a LEED Gold standard. We were very proud of this project. You know, there was no rating system we could go for. We just felt like we had done what was right for the building and for people who would be visiting it all the time for many years. And then the final thing was to get approval from the Parks Commissioner, who at that time was a man named Henry Stern. And Henry Stern insisted that every new project had to have a little animal put on it. And ultimately, he liked a griffin that we showed him, which is over the entrance of the castle now. 20 years later, and it's still here and it's still looking pretty good.